Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the Band Protocol and Crypto.com live video AMA today. Here's me again, Maggie. I'm the head of marketing at Crypto.com, and I'll be hosting for today's live stream. We recently have invited quite a number of DeFi projects to chat with us. There's one I think that we cannot miss. That would be Band Protocol. So joining us today is Soravis. He is the CEO and co-founder of Band Protocol. We have collected a lot of questions from the community through our Twitter earlier this week, and Soravis has selected about 20 of them to address at today's live AMA. If your question has been featured in the Q&A session, that means you have won a share pool of $300 worth of Band prize pool. And we're going to directly deposit the price to your Crypto.com app account within 2 weeks or so. So now let's join us to welcome Soravis too.
Hi guys, thank you Mikey and team, and hi everyone for participating. Thank you for participating. Quick introduction. My name is Soravis, CEO of Band Protocol. Quick background about myself. I'm an engineer by training. So, I essentially did computer science at Stanford grad, did management for my master, also at Stanford, before I sort of left management consultant at BCG for 2 years. And I think around 2013, that's when I sort of came across Bitcoin along with my two other co-founders who studied at MIT. We got a free airdrop back in the days in 2013 by some of the Bitcoin OG at MIT. That's when we became really interested in cryptocurrencies, started to invest on the side while I work at BCG. And then we left our full-time job in early 2017 to pursue blockchain career full-time. And that's sort of when we start to work a lot with smart contract, stable coin, betting applications. And every time we try to build all this smart contract or decentralized application, we always run into these Oracle problems. And that's why we started Band Protocol, which essentially is a decentralized cross-chain Oracle solution. We connect smart contract to external data and API so that smart contract can have much more use cases that connect to the real world information.
Thanks for the introduction. So why don't we dive right in? Because I think there's still a lot of our audience within our community today. They probably understand enough about what you guys are doing, but I think you guys are playing a very important role supporting the boom of a lot of the DeFi projects that we're seeing lately. The first question, why don't we start with, can you explain to us a little bit more how does Band Protocol's Oracle design bring more use cases to blockchains?
Sure. So I think previously, right, in 2017, as I mentioned, blockchain use cases are fairly limited to basic token transfer. All the computation happen just within on-chain data, right? And that's why you don't see many use cases back in the days. No adoption, nobody really used anything at all, right? Now, fast forward in 2020, we are seeing much more use cases, obviously around DeFi, decentralized finance, ranging from stablecoin, lending protocol, derivative, option, perpetual swap tradings. All of these applications essentially require accessing data outside of their blockchain, right? And previously, because if you don't have Oracle, every project need to rebuild these key parts of infrastructure themselves. Right. And that takes time and a lot of effort to do that, to make sure it's fully decentralized and make sure it's really secure for your application, right? Because given that all this information that power your application, if it's incorrect, your whole smart contract is incorrect, right? In terms of the logics. And so that's why Oracle like us really help to expand a lot more use cases to blockchain, including all these categories of DeFi, as well as other application like gaming and betting application that would require external like real world event like sport result to random number generators. So we're really excited to see what will come next after DeFi and many more use cases in the future.
So at the moment, are you guys partnering with any projects that are not in DeFi space?
Right, for sure. So I think if you look at our recent announcement, we also partner with Bet Protocol, for example, that essentially build online decentralized casinos, right? And that require a lot of external data that we need to constantly feed to them, right? That's one example. Another example is we're also working with some banks or other data providers like weather, flight data, weather data. Some of these or shipping information, for example, to enable, for example, conditional payment that based on certain real world event. Right? So some of these are still in the test net or testing environment, but I'm quite excited that over the next couple of months, some of these should move toward more production level.
Great to hear. And how do you see the competition in this space? And more specifically, how do you think that Ben stands out from other Oracle networks?
Sure. I think we start to see a lot more competition now. Before it used to be, shilling at band protocol, right? And now I think there are at least 3, 4 other Oracle as well, which is good. I think it's really healthy for the industry. Right? For us, how we try to really differentiate ourselves is that we build our own Oracle based on Cosmos SDK, essentially building our own blockchain, right, based on Cosmos, and that allowed us a couple of benefits as opposed to, let's say, Ethereum-based Oracle or other Oracle based on some certain network, right? The first part is obviously scalabilities. As Ethereum is super congested, really expensive to process any computation there. Because all of our computation, including data sourcing, data aggregating, happen on band chain that allow us to be completely independent of any blockchain, right? That we want to submit data to, and that allow us to query data, let's say less than 5 seconds from a lot of data sources, right? That's significant improvement compared to Ethereum, for example. Cost is also a byproduct of that. It become much cheaper because we don't have to deal with other transactions that do not relate to us, right? Or the Oracle part. The third part is around flexibilities. We built our Oracle to be super customizable that any DApps developers who want to query data can simply write a script to query any data they want from any public endpoint, right? You can customize your data sources, you can customize the number of validators, you can customize how you want to aggregate this data into the final result for your custom usages. And this is actually quite different to other Oracle in the sense that most of the data providers have a fixed set of requirements that they will process, right? If you want to add new data source or new data type, you need to manually coordinate with them, right, to make that happen. Whereas for us, you don't have to do that. And then the last part, which is also really important to me, is decentralization. The fact that all of our validators need to stake band tokens, they have incentive at the protocol level to act in a good manner, meaning provide the right data, respond to data query, making sure they verify all the data input, right? Because it's in their best interest to actually be a good actor as they have a lot of skin in the game. And in return for that, they earn more band. So I think these are a couple of components that we really differentiate from other competitors at the moment.
So I think you touched on a little bit on level of participation from mass public and the community. Why don't we drill down on that a little bit more? Can you explain to us the role of Chain Node in the Band Protocol platform ecosystem? And is there anything that regular users like those in our audience today that actually become nodes? And what are the requirements? Staking the tokens the only requirement?
Right. Yes. So for Chain Node, right, they have two jobs essentially. One is to produce block, essentially verify transaction, right, just like a miner on Ethereum's. And then the second part is provide the Oracle service. So responding to any data query request from anyone who submit that transaction, right? And then they have the job to essentially go fetch the data, report the data, and run the Oracle script that we have on Chain, right? These are the primary job of a Chain node. Now, can anyone become a band chain node? Yes, our band chain is fully public and permissionless. And this is actually one of our key strengths as well. You don't require a team permission to operate a node, as long as obviously you have band tokens to stake and have the I guess the infrastructure to run the band chain node, right? Now, in terms of the minimum requirement, right now there's no minimum requirement for you to run a benchain node. So anyone in our communities can essentially spin up AWS architecture or Google Cloud and run a benchain node. Right, but of course you need to be careful because there are penalties if you don't act, obviously in a good manner. If you have downtime, if you double sign, there's a risk that your ban will get slashed, right? And there has been incident where that already happened, right? But that's a good thing because again, all of these economic incentive is designed to make sure that our ban chain is secure and also decentralized at the same time, right? So yeah, it's really public.
Okay, great. I think you see a lot of the DeFi projects with the decentralized governance model. The community is really important for the success of the projects. As a community member or someone who actually actively running a node, what sort of expectations that you guys have for them, and how do you maintain the community in a way that they're fully participating and they're really doing what you guys expect them to do? And in the near future, is there any plan for you guys to do any specific event for the community that have been supporting your protocol?
Right, for sure. So I think in terms of our communities, I think we usually separate them into two parts, right? One is the more technical, developers who either run a benchain node or do work on something on benchain, right, or contribute to our ecosystem. So for that, we actually maintain quite an active Discord channel where we essentially our core benchain team maintain constant communication. We talk a lot, literally every day, right? In terms of if there are some problems, if some nodes are down, if there are some problem with some of the validators, each of them actually help each other, and that's something that we are quite proud of, and we are really happy to see. Usually not even our team, but there's team from Clora, for example, like to really participate and help us in diagnosing a lot of these issues. We've been running a couple of test net to test all this infrastructure. Everyone helped to discover bugs, even though it's minor. It really showed the strength of the community, right? So Discord is our main channel for technical related question, especially staking, validators, and all that. And when we run all the incentive program related to that, we do on that channel, right? The other part is obviously the trading or the general communities that support us on Twitter, Reddit, Telegram. We actually have quite a vibrant community now called Band Jedi, which is pretty good. We actually see quite a growing number of communities who join us, really champion us in this social media, and I think it's a first step. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we haven't been able to host a physical event, but we believe that in the near future, when everything is allowed, then we're gonna be asking a lot of these Jedi communities to host a local event, right? Both a non-technical and technical event. I think that's really definitely on the card, and we've been planning some of that event already. Yeah.
Sure. The next question is again back to the key features of BAN protocol, which you have already addressed. That includes scalability and lower cost, right? So what kind of real-world data and APIs that BAN connect to smart contracts? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So right now, in terms of our architecture, we are able to connect to any public API. That means any open API that any companies like CoinMarketCap provide data endpoint, Coinbase provide data endpoint for any users. Our validators can query those endpoint easily, so there's no problem with that. And so far, it's been sufficient, given that there's a lot more of data sources that serve the data that we need, right? So that's the current stage of things. Now, in the next phase, where we are already been implementing, in the second phase, is that basically will allows our validators to also query data from a private API as well. So people, let's say, for example, Bloomberg, right? They provide data behind paywall. You need to pay to access that, like Bloomberg Terminal. We're working with a lot of these private companies to essentially open these API so that validators on top of BAN chain can also gain access to these sort of data point in a trustless manner, while they themselves are being compensated for that job. So that's something that we've been implementing, and we're really excited that in the near future that should come live, and that will be able to support a lot of these data point to our partners that use our Oracle already.
Next question. What was the main reason BAN Protocol chose to use Cosmos SDK? What is the benefit for using the SDK over other blockchains ones?
Right. So I think without going into the deep technical detail, I think at a high level, back in around 2018, right, and mid 2019, I think Cosmos SDK is quite ready and ready to deploy, right, in a sense that it's quite robust and is production ready. And that's really dictate a lot of our decision, because obviously we don't want to depend our projects on some other project that is not live or cannot be used yet, right? Because then that means our timeline really depend on other projects. So that's one big consideration. Number two, I think it's also allow us to customize a lot of our own requirement, because we build our own Oracle script on top of we need to build that Oracle script on top of the blockchain, right? So we choose solution that allow us to easily customize that without, again, having to depend on other blockchain, right? And finally, I think a lot of projects were using Cosmos SDK as well, right? You have Binance Chain using it, you have Terra from Korea. A lot of prominent projects are already using Cosmos SDK, not to mention, hundreds of projects using Tendermint. So there's a network effect from that ecosystem as well, not just from security perspective, but also from ecosystem perspective, like such as wallet support, exchange supported validators. So things like that allow us to easily bootstrap the BAN chain, and that's why we really go with Cosmos SDK.
Sure. As a developer, what kind of programming languages can they use to build dApps on BAN protocol, and why should, as a developer, choose BAN protocol over the others?
Right. So I think in terms of programming languages, again, we are really flexible. The thing is, anyone can use any language on any blockchain, right? We aim to be cross-chain compatible. That means even though all the computation take place on the BAN chain, right, the final result of that data query plus the verification can be sent to any destination blockchain, including Ethereum's, Solana, Polkadot, all these different blockchain. We want to be part of them, and we try to integrate with all of them, so that any developers, let's say if they choose to, I want to build on Ethereum because they have a broadband ecosystem, they can still use BAN protocol, and they can just use Solidity to do that, right? If they choose to, let's say, oh, I want to build really scalable applications with Polkadot, right? With the Pilot chain, you can also choose BAN protocol Oracle data as well. So we are really blockchain agnostic, right? And we aim to support any languages, any dApps on any blockchain. Now, why do they want to choose us? I think as I touched on earlier, I think we allow us to scale quite faster than many other Oracle, with as well as being a cheaper alternative, right? So imagine if you want to build a really scalable lending protocol, or let's say perpetual swap on Solana, right? And that you need data, let's say every 5 seconds or even every 1 second. How are you going to get that from other Oracle based on, let's say, Ethereum, right? That become a big problem, right? And that's almost impossible. And that's why with our scale abilities, we're able to serve all these different requirements as well. The flexibilities, again, in 2020, you start to see many more use cases, not just DeFi, not just cryptocurrency prices. We have been getting requests like, I want to resolve Indian cricket league, right? Things that is really specific, really niche to market. You're not going to be able to get that for a node that really specific to that data type. But our flexibilities allow that to happen, right? And I guess decentralization again is a big component for me.
Great to hear. Well, so now we have a much better understanding on BAN protocol and the operation of your blockchain. Let's move on to addressing a couple of questions surrounding the BAN token, which I think a lot of our community members are really interested in. So the first question on that is, what sort of utilities does the band token itself, and what kind of incentives or streams of revenues can the band token holders be offered?
Sure. So the band tokens, right? In terms of incentive, if you stake the band tokens either as just the regular token holders on behalf of validators or running a validator yourself, you essentially earn band tokens to two methods, right? One is the block reward. Essentially, you get some block reward for producing block, and two, you earn the query fee. So every single time that people query the data on band chain, they pay a fee in band tokens. And these tokens essentially get distributed back to all the token holders who stake the token, right? So apart from the inflation from block reward, you also earn this portion as well. And that means the incentive is really clear, right? If you own a lot of band, you want to stake the token to secure the network, act in a good manner, supply the right data, drive adoption of band protocol. And in exchange for that, there will be more value flow through the network due to more data being queried, more revenue being generated. And these revenue essentially are the cash flow, right? The on-chain cash flow that happen through band protocol and essentially flow back to all the staker who essentially help to provide that securities and do the job on the network itself.
I'm sure it's interesting to observe like how you guys can manage to maintain the equilibrium, which is very crucial to the ecosystem of your token. So moving on to the next question, token burn is very common as a practice, and is also quite beneficial for projects in terms of controlling the supply, the circulation, and also offering greater incentives to investors. Does your project also have a plan to do an exercise like this in the near future?
Right. Token burn has always been, a good topic, as you mentioned, really hot topic in the space, right? Apart from obviously the regulatory concern, we've been talking to a lot of regulators as well regarding that. We have been researching and quite publicly, talk about this a couple of times as well. That we also explore some token burn mechanisms, because I think is a great way, not just for incentive for the network, but also for the controlling overall cost of the network. If there are a lot more usages, people will have gas war and bid the price up again, just like Ethereum, right? So these as token burn are some of the good mechanisms to sort of avoid that. So I mean, if you've been following Ethereum communities, there's a big proposal, EIP 1559, that directly relate token burn to the network activities and usages, right, to avoid congestion as well. So we have been following that in the Ethereum communities. We've been researching that, and I think in the future, if that has been implemented and see good result, we will likely follow suit for sure. We think that there's a lot more design to be explored, and frankly speaking, at this point in time, it's probably not in the immediate need for us. But once we actually see actual use cases and people actually successfully implement some of this, we're probably going to be implementing some variation of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, moving on to the next question. This community member is asking why that about 90% of band protocols is held by 5 to 6 portfolios, and how anyone who is willing to invest can do so, given that if these portfolios decide to sell, the price will very likely collapse, and which will be a big risk to anyone considering the moment.
That is indeed a big risk that we need to be careful. So yes, I think this is really easy. It's actually quite a misconception that people misunderstood here, that only 90% of the token are controlled by 6 addresses, right? The fact is this: right now we exist on both ERC20 on Ethereum as well as the band native token on band chain, right? Over 90% are actually on the band native address, meaning on the the band native tokens, right? And only less than 10% are the ERC20 version. The reason why we need ERC20 version is because we need to interact with some of this DeFi on top of Ethereum, right? Paying for fee, paying for Oracle as well. So that's why we maintain the 2 versions. Now, because we maintain the 2 versions, most people, then especially newcomers, look at Etherscan first, right? And of course on Etherscan, then the top 90% are essentially all the locked tokens that basically it locks the token of BAM, and these are actually exist on the BAM native tokens. And that's why it looked quite concerning, although it's not the case because those are essentially locked and it actually exists on the BAM chain itself, right? So yes, so I don't think we have that big concern at all. If you look at the number of addresses, actually, it has been increasing significantly. I think last year we were only at 500. Now we're up at 15,000 addresses across ERC20 and BAM chain native addresses, and it's fairly distributed as well. The bigger metrics for me though is that since we are a proof of stake blockchain, you can look at the number of BAM being staked at the moment, right? And that actually gives you quite a good indication of what is actually circulating, right, at that moment in time. And right now, I mean, we have almost 85% of token being staked, and that means they cannot be moved, they cannot be sold, right? And if they do want to do that, they have 21-day unbonding period, similar to Cosmos. So if anyone choose to unstake the tokens, you also see that movement 21 days ahead of that, right? So the risk of major whales or major players try to dump all their portfolios, I think that's really marginal and really really small, not likely to happen. Of course, us as a team and foundation, we are really long term, and we're really careful in terms of managing this for sure.
Thanks for clarifying that, and it's really cool for people who are considering.
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah.
All right. So I think it's time for us to maybe scale, zoom out a little bit to look at more macro. I mean, DeFi is such a hot topic, and how BAM protocol is listed as one of the hottest project under DeFi. What is the number one key issue that you guys are looking to address or resolve in any DeFi ecosystem? Can you also share a bit of your personal opinion on DeFi with us? Do you think that DeFi will actually disrupt the current financial system? And what is your current approach to really try to win or progress aggressively in the DeFi sector?
Right, and that's a lot to unpack. But I think for me, right, DeFi is actually quite a buzzword now. But it also spans many categories. It spans from stablecoin that we see from MakerDAO, span to lending protocol like Aave, Compound, to synthetics, like derivative. And we're gonna see many more categories like in-trances with Nexus Mutual, derivative option trading, right? Like serums. A lot more of these categories are coming to market. For me, I think a lot of these actually have quite big potential to really, I wouldn't say replace the traditional system, but actually complement them, right? Offer an alternative solution, right? Because what DeFi really is we try to create that traditional finance on a blockchain with lower cost and in a trustless system. That means anyone around the world, with internet can actually interact with the system, without having to worry about KYC, without having to worry about, whether you're poor or rich, right? Because if you're a bank, you essentially have a lot of fixed cost per person to serve, and that's why you have a lot of underbanked, right? Unbanked people, right? Especially in developing countries. And so for me, I think I'm quite bullish that a lot of this infrastructure will help to address a lot of these long tail of users, as well as create this truly trustless system that anyone can interact with, right? And enjoy, let's say, higher yield now than traditional market. Now, for me, what is the priorities? I think there are two things here that a lot of us in the ecosystem are driving for, right? One is, of course, the user friendliness, right? How do we actually make it much more user friendly for regular users to interact with that? I think a lot of number of players are doing that. Aave, for example, right? They recently acquired banking license, and that's a really good news, right? Because then that allows them to operate almost like a bank, right? And then the second part is securities, and this is where we really optimize for and what we really shoot for, right? In a trusted system, obviously you don't want to trust anyone, and because now we have multi-billions of dollars locked into this contract, securities is always obviously number one priority here. Smart contract bug is one thing, Oracle risk is another thing, right? And this is why Oracle like BAM is really important to the whole DeFi ecosystem because essentially Oracle, like us, provides securities to the DeFi space, right? If we provide wrong information, billions of dollars can be lost. Okay? And that's why you can see that the perceived value right now of the whole Oracle industry is actually even significantly higher than DeFi itself, right? I mean, if you look at Chainlink alone, the entire market cap is more than mostly all the DeFi combined, right? And that's because again, Oracle provides securities to this DeFi, and naturally, that's why they command a lot of high market cap, right? And for us, I mean, our priority is we obviously want to drive adoption of this, and therefore we need to increase the securities of the system, right? And that's probably going to be our focus over the next coming years. How do we actually optimize our Oracle? How do we optimize securities, especially with regard to all these growing categories of DeFi, all this growing number of usages across different blockchain? It will have more attack vectors. It will have more attack surfaces that we need to take care of. But yeah, we're really excited to drive this adoption. And if DeFi is to scale to real world application and real world usages, Oracle like us need to be 100% bulletproof. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to observe the trend, because in the last couple of years, um, the biggest risk that has been exposed in the crypto space was hacking on centralized exchange. But then as DeFi is booming, and then we're seeing more and more. So whether it's centralized or decentralized, like no one can be excluded from addressing the concern of security, because hackers actually follow where the money is, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can see it now, right? In the bull market now, all the scammers are back. I think there are like 100 Soravis on Telegram right now. So,
Yeah. So I mean, uh, the next question, you guys have been clearly supporting a lot of DeFi projects, and there are also a lot of like use cases that have been showcased. Um, what would you say would be the best or like the most promising DeFi application use case for Band Protocol at the moment? And is that an area that you would like to continue to develop aggressively?
Yep. I think of course lending protocol is number one, right now by far. If you look at the number of usages in terms of utilization rate, in terms of total value locked, lending is obviously number one, and I think we are looking to support that for sure. But the next big things that we are excited about, there are two parts. One is DEXs, right? Decentralized exchanges, whether it be spot tradings or perpetual swap tradings in a decentralized manner. These are actually picking up in terms of volumes, right? And some of these will also require Oracle. Like if you look at Band Core V2, they're also coming out with how to reduce impermanent loss with Oracle. Some of these also require Oracle in the front end to sort of minimize all this attack vector or minimize their, I guess, ability to maintain their own architectures to bring the data on chain. Right. So some of these are coming to market. Perpetual swap, of course, need spot price for funding rate. And we are actually quite bullish. I mean, if you look at the trading volume of perpetual swap, it's insane, right? And a lot of those gonna hit the market fairly soon. And I'm fairly sure that there are real product market fit there. So that's the first part. The second part, which is more longer term, that I'm quite bullish on, is derivative or synthetic tokens, right? Essentially, any token that able to mirror or peg to real world asset, whether that be real estate, stock, commodities, because then it will allow global communities to trade this asset in a seamless manner with a cheaper cost, right? Of course, Oracle going to be a really big part of this component to make sure the price remain pegged, right? And that's really important. And I think we are seeing a lot more use cases. Right now, we see at least 4 or 5 projects in stealth mode that are working on this. Some of them quite prominent in the sense that they also partner with banks in order to onboard users and able to get more mainstream users to use these applications. So yeah, I'm quite bullish that by the end of this year, we should see some of these come to production, and hopefully we see much more use case other than lending protocol.
Great. And I think most of us would agree, like DeFi is growing very fast on the Ethereum platform. And you were just talking about like how you compare benching versus the current problem that the Ethereum platform is encountering. How do you see yourself in maybe a year or two or so as a role in the DeFi ecosystem as a whole, compared to say where Ethereum is today?
Right. I think we are growing exponentially as well, right? To support all this integration.
Yeah.
Over the past couple of months, we double our integration team alone, just to be able to handle all these requests. And I think like I'm really bullish in terms of the use cases, not just Ethereum's, but across different other blockchain. But again, because of us being the virtue of blockchain agnostic, we don't need to bet on the winning horse, right? We see ourselves as a friendly person or companion to anyone who want to build any meaningful smart contract on any blockchain, right? And the flexibilities of our band chain really help a lot with this integration, right? Because we don't have to hold their hands and try to integrate and make sure that happen, right? The flexibilities allow them to do that much faster and easier without our intervention. And we're also creating a standard right now as well to make it much more common in terms of the common use cases, to make them available on any blockchain with optimized gas costs. So these are some of the initiatives that we're building, because in the future, 2-3 years down the line, again, we hope that we will be the backbone to power all this decentralized finance, as well as other smart contract use cases, potentially interfacing with more real world use cases, as I mentioned before, like conditional payment. Those will be quite a killer apps in the future.
Great. The next question is back to security that you were just talking about, that a lot of DeFi projects are not just needing to deal with smart contract risk, but also Oracle risk. And then as a service provider connecting data points, the next question is about, if a hacker maliciously manipulates external data, how can you verify the reliability of it?
Right. Oracle, right, to verify the data is actually quite tricky, right? Oracle is a hard problem because there's no 100% correct answer, right? If you say Bitcoin is, I don't know, 11,300, I say 11,500, which has the correct answer, right? It's actually cannot be 100% verifiable, because it's not mathematically verifiable to be correct, right? Unlike a predictable, I guess, smart contract, right? But you can get close to that, even though you can't be 100% sure. I think you can get close to 99%, right? And how we do that, essentially, again, because we have staking, that means we align all this economic incentive of all the stakeholders within our ecosystem. If they want to manipulate the data, right, you need to essentially collude with over 50%. In fact, in our network, probably like 70% of the voting power, in order to manipulate the data. And that essentially is prohibitively expensive to do that, and compared to the benefit that they would get from manipulating such data, right? And so right now, even though there is no direct penalties, our staking mechanics allows them to have the right economic incentive to be a good actor, right? Now, in the future, of course, we are also exploring direct slashing for this, right? And that may include direct collateral on chain, to put something on chain as a collateral, similar to some other Oracle right now, or on chain voting as some of the mechanisms. All of these have different trade-off, right? If you introduce some of this, yes, there might be some real mechanic to enforce the integrities of the data, but it also introduces delay in the system, which may be overkill for these purposes. Or if you require collateral in the form of that particular tokens, you also limit your data feed into that particular, let's say, crypto asset, right? You cannot put Apple stock as a collateral on chain, right? And so some of these are we're still researching, and we hopefully that in the future we will be implementing that. But for now, in at least in the short term, our economic incentives work, and that's, we use these indirect penalties from having skin in the game, right? Just like other blockchain.
It also sounds like it has to be an evolving development in order to cater the actual needs and demands as well.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's move on to talk a little bit about market expansion. as we mentioned earlier, a lot of people think that Ben is a direct competitor to Chainlink. Do you think that there's a possibility for both to coexist and expand DeFi community, being that this DeFi is still at a very nascent stage, and the current market attitude towards DeFi reminds a lot of people back in 2017. Um, and then how do you see that compared to the ICO boom with what we are experiencing right now?
For the direct competitors questions, we are really friendly. Again, we see that as a healthy thing for this industry, right? I don't think having one solution is healthy for any industry, blockchain or not blockchain, right? And you see that across every single industry, right? Now, from our perspective, right, as DeFi continue to grow, securities again is number one priorities. And that means if you have billions of dollars locked up in your contract, right, and you have one oracle securing everything for that, it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to sort of outsource all your security to one company, right? I think it makes a lot of sense as you grow and have billions of dollars to be responsible and actually use multiple oracle to sort of cross-check the data to sort of make sure that we can get close to 100% secure as much as possible, right? So that's why for me, for the high value contract like DeFi, like lending protocol with billions of dollars, I can see multiple Oracle actually coexisting to provide that securities, right? Guarantee for the protocol. For the lower value, like betting application, sure, you may only use one because again, it doesn't make sense since each of the transaction is really small in terms of value, right? And so there are rooms for both options for sure. And again, as industry continue to develop, I think a lot of our communities will start to demand more decentralization from the protocol itself. And that means, again, that's why you see the launch of these governance tokens, so that it's placed in the hand of communities instead of, the developers have all to say, right? And I think as we continue to do that, you're going to continue to see much more decentralization when it comes to Oracle as well. And to answer your second questions around, I guess the market attitude toward DeFi compared to the ICOs, right? I think yes, there are merit to that. Are we going to see crazy run like 2017? Market is irrational, probably. Are we gonna right? It's gonna go up much higher. Will it correct? Yes, it will correct, right? In the long term, but at the very least, at least this time, I think you start to see actual protocol being used, right?
Yeah.
Compile, for example, is a good example. They
Yeah.
were being used even before the launch of comp token, right?
Yeah.
Does the comp token help to accelerate the usages? Sure, it does. It does attract yield farming. It does attract more short-term speculators. But at the fundamental level, there are people that use this protocol to begin with. So I think those will survive for sure. Through the boom and bust, there will be more opportunistic players coming in. Those may not survive. So again, you need to be cautious, right, in terms of determining who is actually in for the long term versus the short term.
Well, I mean, personally, I also agree. I think a lot more use case and actual side of utility, because finally we're at the stage of like building actual financial services on this decentralized blockchain technology, right? And that takes time to evolve, and it's not going to say that the market is going to stay that way. Every cycle of development will get rid of some bad players, and then the good players will emerge. So definitely hope that band protocol will stay on the top as
For
one
sure.
progresses. Um, and I think the next question you have already sort of addressed. And I really like that you guys are already aiming for a lot of like real world use cases, applications, and addressing like other asset classes of developments as well. So I'm just going to skip that one and move on to asking a couple of questions towards your project development so far. So Band Protocol is still a very young project. And what do you think are the greatest achievements that you guys have achieved so far?
Yeah, I think number one for us is the right product market fit, right? creating a product that somebody actually really use and really want to use, right? I think that's really rare to find in cryptos. And I think we are at the stage where we can proudly say that when we talk to our partners, when we do integration with other projects around the world, we can say there's real demand for this Oracle solution, right? And it's not that easy actually. So if you follow us from day one, first time we actually launched on Ethereum, and that wasn't so successful, right? But we iterate really fast. We take a lot of feedback from our partners, from our communities, from our private investors to start to iterate really fast and come up with a new product, right? To solve the same problems, but in a better manner, right? And then you can actually start to see that, oh, now you actually start to see product market fit when you talk to partners and people actually want to use you guys, right? I think we're at that stage. So I think that's probably the biggest achievement so far. And as a byproduct of that, that's why we start to have much more global awareness, right? People start to recognize that this is real projects that are being used. Get listed on Coinbase Pro, and Coinbase obviously really bring us into the global scene, especially in the West where we usually lack awareness to begin with, because we were really Asia focused, right? And yeah, so I think that these are probably one of the biggest achievement, and I think over the coming months, I mean, adoption going to be one of our biggest priorities.
This next question is a follow up. Is out of my own personal curiosity, because given a number of partners that you're in discussion with, how big is your team at the moment?
Yes, we're actually killing ourselves. Our team actually stays till midnight almost every day. Right now we are up to 18 full-time people, but we are recruiting a few more as well. But yeah, we are actually quite handful. Not the Bandchain team as well as the integration team. It's been quite crazy. Yeah.
I can only imagine, guys. Next question, which is not what we have touched on quite a lot. How do you see the future of cryptocurrencies?
Wow, that's a really open-ended questions. Again, right. So I think for me, right, cryptocurrency will play quite an important role as an alternative, obviously, investment vehicle, a new asset class, right? Bitcoin, for example, can totally become a store of values for people who want to seek that alternative to gold, for example. And I think you start to see a lot of that. Smart contract like Ethereum and decentralized finance again will come to complement these financial institutions. Given that now we have different asset class, we also need essentially different architecture to handle that, right? And I do think that in the future you're gonna start seeing these two worlds sort of merge toward each other, right? I mean, you already start to see that. As I said before, we acquire banking license. You also start to see bank actually come into play and come into cryptos, right? Whether that be through investment, whether building their own exchanges, whether actually building their own DeFi. We actually see that some of those examples already as well. So I think all eyes are on this new digital asset class. It will become super major and people will use it just like go on as a regular investment. Or use cases. It just takes time for all these players to build that infrastructure. It takes time for regulators to catch up. But again, every cycle drive innovation, and I'm quite bullish that over the next 5 to 10 years, this is going to become quite a normal, I guess, scene in our life for sure.
Yeah, totally agree. What is the roadmap for Band Protocol for the remaining 2020? Why don't we expand it to 2021 as well?
Yes. So I think 2020, well, we have 3 months left now, 4 months left, right? Yes. In fact, it go really fast when you just work at home or at office. We are having to travel, right? Adoption is our number one priorities for the rest of the year and actually in 2021, right? We want to make sure that our partners can use Band Oracle in a secure and safe manner. So that is always going to be our number one priorities. You're going to start seeing more adoption across different landscape of these DeFi categories, betting, gaming applications across different blockchain. And it's really exciting time because you see a lot of these layer one also coming to market, right? Polkadot is coming, Solana just hit the market, Celos, a lot of these different blockchain are coming to market, and everyone will try to fight for that share of their use cases. and we'll be there when we help to support everyone. And that's probably going to be the biggest roadmap for us in terms of the adoption and integration. Securities and ban chain, again, always going to be a priority as well. And I think 2020, next year, 2021, is going to be one of our priorities to upgrade the ban chain to, like I said, support more categories of data, more premium API, more private data, researching for ways to implement better economic incentive, looking for ways to always optimize our protocol. We recently just hired a new guy as well. He's I think in terms of he did a lot of the math competition, like Olympian math, and he's ranked number 4 in the world. So he's going to be here to research a lot of these economic incentive, going to be researching a lot of these protocol, really deep level research. So really excited for that.
Okay, I guess that's all. All of the questions, all 20 questions that you have addressed today. And before we move on to closing, is there anything specifically that you would like to share with our Crypto.com community here today?
Yes. So again, thank you again, guys, for tuning in. A pleasure to be here with you guys. As you know, Band Protocol is really young. We are here, actually we're less than 1 year old when it comes to actually launching on the mainnet, right? Tomorrow, not tomorrow, next month is actually our anniversaries. So I'm really excited, Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I mean, Band is our baby. We are really long-term focused. We are here to drive adoption to actually move this industry forward. So we really appreciate and really humbled by all the support in this, I would call just early success, right? I think there's a lot more room to grow. There's a lot more, we're just really early, right? Just the whole DeFi in general, the Oracle in general. We are really early in this industry, and we need all of your support. Whether you be developers, whether you be community members, join us, and we are here to interact with you guys. And I guess last thing, as you know, right now, I guess the market is picking up, and there will be many noises. I mean, just like in 2017, right? My takeaway is really focus on the people who continue to build and deliver, especially during the bear market, right? There will be many noises, many new projects coming out, changing to DeFi or whatnot, Oracle, right? But the real focus should be the people that actually built since the bear market, because those are people that stick in here for the long term for sure, right? And really believe in what they're doing. And I think Band is one of them. So please, if you can support us, that'd be great. And we'll try our best and continue to deliver the best product possible.
As a project that is like much older than you guys, can only totally agree with what you're saying. Like, for those who stick around to build when the market is not doing well, is those that can really like boom during the bull run, right? So I guess it's a very tough space, but we're not lacking really passionate people to contribute to the community day in and day out, and I think that's what keeps us going and you up at midnight, right? So thanks so much, Soravis, for sharing today. A lot of great insights. I'm very impressed by you guys' ambition on like tackling projects that are out of crypto space. I think it's really important for us to showcase to mass public like what the technology and capabilities can expand to other real world use cases and applications as well. So that's really impressive. And also big thanks to our community for your participation and really great questions that you have submitted earlier this week. Once again, for the questions that Soravis have answered earlier during the AMA, you share a prize pool of $300 worth of Band token, and the prize will be distributed directly to your Crypto.com app account within 2 weeks of time. So in the meanwhile, please follow Band Protocol and Crypto.com Twitter and stay informed about upcoming events and update. Thanks so much, and until next time, bye.
Thank you, guys.